What's up, y'all? Joshua Dobbs here for another VFL show. This week, for the big game against Alabama, third Saturday in October, I'm joined by one of my friends. He's an all-time SEC legend, two-time All-SEC during his time at the University of Tennessee. Went on, had a long career for the Pittsburgh Steelers, the one and only Ramon Foster. What's up, my man? How are you doing?
Hey, man, I appreciate that intro, dude. You forgot former teammates in the league and everything, man.
Man, it's crazy.
I know. I'll tell a quick story too. Before we even get into it, I'll never forget like watching you in college. Number one, okay. But then I'm like, all right, I'm in this league. Like NFL is one of those just okay next year, and then we'll do another year, and then it's the next year, right? And I never forget we ended up drafting you. I'm like, wow, this is like one of those cool, like I'm an old guy type of moment, but it's still like young enough to play with you in NFL. Was super cool, man. That was one of the, I will say, when you and Cam Sutton came on, the big Dan McCullers was there too.
Yeah,
that was one of those moments where it's just like, okay, this is like really cool, man. It was.
Hey, I will say that too, because when you go to NFL, you go into a new locker room after you've already been supplanted in one. You're like, golly, who am I gonna find? Like, I gotta find new friends, new people, and just like people to look up to. So it was really cool. Like then looking on the roster, all right, who are at least my Tennessee guys? So I saw being drafted with Cam, played with Dan, and I was like two guys that I knew of but never have met.
Right.
Like, all right, Justin Hunter, and then Ramon Foster. I was like, that's awesome. I'm gonna get a chance to meet those guys. I heard so much good things about them at Tennessee, but get a chance to play with them was dope.
Yeah, it was cool. Justin was there, man. It was crazy. I see Justin almost every year down in like 30A for like spring break or fall break. It's like we break at the same time, man. So a lot of bridges, man, through this VFL network, and I'm glad to be a part of it and be on here with you guys too.
No doubt, my man. Well, let's jump right into it. Our Vols are balling.
Yeah.
This year, 5-0, first time since 2016. Man, what have you enjoyed seeing from them?
Man, Dobbs, I feel like this is the first time since your era. Just being completely honest, and I've told other people this too, and I've said this on my radio show too. Ramon, Kayla, and Will in Nashville. I've said, I was like, this has probably been one of the last times where we've seen stability, where you have a quarterback, where you see guys be teammates, where you see a situation in which it looked like the team is all about itself, like no outside chatter. Everybody's banding together, and it's just been fun. We said it this week during this Alabama-Tennessee week that this now feels like Vol healing, to where you went through all of those 10 years. You're trying to figure out who you are as a university, as a football team, especially after the last coach. Everybody heard the rumors, or at least was around to hear about some of the stuff.
For sure.
And to watch Coach Heupel and Danny White and Chancellor Dundee Plowden and kind of, settle everything, man. And to actually see that turn into wins from a guy that a lot of people didn't know anything about. Two guys people didn't know a lot about. Josh Heupel and freaking Hendon Hooker. Like, that's been a situation that you look to yourself and say, one, head coaching stability means a lot.
Definitely.
If you look
especially
around,
in the SEC.
Especially in the SEC, because if you're changing coaches, that means you're a bad outfit, right?
Yeah. What Coach that's one used to say. It's like, so at some point, someone has to go, us or them, and it seems like for the last 8 years, it's us, but now that stability is getting back.
It is, and that's where I'm of the mindset, man, that we didn't know what Josh Heupel was going to be. I will say this, in this era and what football is at almost every level, man, from high school all the way up, college to NFL, if you got an offensive guy, you got something.
Yeah.
And then if you get that offensive guy with a good quarterback, Hendon Hooker, then you really got something. And I've even told you this in person. I was like, you saved Butch's job, like joking, because the quarterback means a lot, man. But I'm sure your relationship is different than the way the public kind of see it. But y'all meshed together. You made plays, watching Hendon and Heupel make plays. And it's not just about those two, but it does kind of set a precedent. What's that?
I said, but that's where it starts, right?
That's where it starts. Sometimes, man, and I remember us being in college and Coach Fulmer letting Eric Ainge know, like, the quarterback is one of the main figures on campus.
Across
especially
the state.
across the state.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, just from your time, like I'm sure you went from being like a young dude on the team to like, oh, that's a little bit different. You know, when you're the starting guy and you win. So that pairing, man, is what a lot of stable, especially college football programs have. You look at Ohio State, you look at Alabama as of late, it was all defense. Now it's a lot of offense. You look at what USC has going on. You look how geeked up Texas was to get Arch Manning to commit. You look at Clemson and what Dabo was able to establish. Like all of these things kind of mean something when it comes down to the stability of your group. But I'm excited. This actually feels good this time around.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think when Coach Heupel came and knowing the offense that he's bringing to Tennessee, it was exciting, like coming up on the offensive side of the ball, because you can get high school recruits on campus if they know they're putting up points.
Right.
Like, hey, yo, you're going to go and you're going to own the stat sheet. Guys are like, oh, I want to go play there. And then that will lead to wins. But now it's like, all right, can we also, while we're scoring 40 points, can we also stop people on the other side of the ball? And I think that's been really cool to see, the younger guys and the guys that stayed around through the coaching change step up and fill those roles of guys that were playing at a high level before they left, whether it was to the league or to other schools. Now it's like new guys, exactly what you're saying, like just like Hendon, right? Guys that have waited their time, put in the work, and we're just waiting for the opportunity. And now that they have the opportunity, they're really making the most of it.
It is. That's interesting too. You mentioned that the guys that's willing to stick around. I was just having that conversation with some VFLs. I was just like, I'm one of those guys that transferred out, went to other schools, especially the ones that went to smaller schools that probably got to travel on bus to get to their next game. You know what I'm saying? Who don't have that first class status of flying planes and all of the perks I'm playing on TV. I wonder if they look back now at this situation and said, dang, I wish I'd have kind of stuck it out a little bit. But the other part of it, though, too, is the transfer portal has kind of allowed that. And I'm okay with it to an extent. I'm okay with guys getting in it and leaving because we've been direct benefactors of it, too, with Hendon and with Joe Milton, too, and Gerald Mincy. So I'm not opposed to it. But don't hop in there if you don't have a real plan or you're not going to a place that's actually going to be very productive for you, man. But I appreciate those dudes sticking it through. And it's led to a lot of this growth and this foundation of setting a floor higher. Imagine those guys now on that team. If this does kind of snowball into something bigger, this 2022 class that's there now look at it and say, we started this. And there's nothing more proud than that, Exactly.
And I think, it's cool. Like our program, very similar to the transfer portal and everything, really benefited from the COVID year, where you have guys, that have been able to stay in college maybe a little longer, but also get a chance to get more reps and develop. And because of that, now I feel like, especially like Tennessee, like we have a lot of older guys that are in those prominent roles that they're able to now go out and play at a high level. And so I think like my question to you is like, what do you think, we have to continue to do to make sure it's sustainable, that the next class, there's not a drop of like 2016 to 2017 was like one of the worst drop-offs in school history. And so
it was.
How do we not let that happen again?
I think it goes to culture. And I'll just say this from my standpoint to yours. Whenever I met you, when you came into that Pittsburgh locker room, there was a line that was really set for young guys. Remember, like everybody had their role, right? Where everybody's like, okay, don't mess with the O-line. The D-line does their own thing. We practice this type of way. The offense operates through this guy. Hey, he got a day off, but you better be really good like that guy if you ever want to get to that point. Yeah, you better know who you are. And I think that's where this part of the culture aspect of what Heupel did in that first, what was it, February rehab, when they first got hired, like, hey, we're here playing a game. It's a business now. More so than it ever has been, but we're here playing a game. And in that game, we got to have fun. And in that fun, we got to learn how to win. And I think from where it's gone from since Heupel has been hired is what the culture actually is. Like one thing I appreciate about him is he don't give us much, right? Like on the media side, you don't see anything. You look at him like, this is a boring dude. But most of the good coaches I know, they're boring to
that.
everybody, right? Like they are boring to everybody. And I think looking at the way he's kind of crafted that locker room by leadership at the quarterback position all the way down to having their leadership groups, to now understanding what winning is, because I think after Hugh left, nobody really understood what winning was. They just thought it was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a way of crafting hard work out of your players with understanding that you do love them. You do enjoy them. Like whatever I told you during recruiting has to stay here. So how does this continue to stay? I'll be honest with you. Recruiting is number one.
Yeah.
Has to be. I'll give Nick Saban, Dabo, Jimbo, Coach Ryan Day, everybody their flowers as far as being able to coach. But if you look at those programs, they're top 5, top 7, top 10 every year in recruiting.
Exactly. They get the kids there, right?
Yeah, you got to get them there. And that's where you have to be able to consistently build that. And if that's not your method, then your guys that stick around, they got to buy into your system. And I think that's what they've been able to do as of late. You got a transfer guy like Brew McCoy a couple of weeks ago say, this is the best decision I've made in my life so far. As a young adult, you know what I'm saying? To have that to be a statement that comes out of the locker room, Dobbs, that doesn't happen, not in a college level like that, because I guess a guy like him that's moved around a couple of schools, you understand the magnitude of what being at a University of Tennessee can mean to you. So It's sustainability of, truthfully, quarterback, boys up front, and just the culture of understanding that you can compete with everybody in the entire country.
Definitely. I think also what plays into recruiting, obviously, is the atmosphere, right?
Yeah.
Where are you going to play, and what is the game day atmosphere like? Mm-hmm. You know, I know we were both back for the Florida game. Talk about that atmosphere. Like what it feels like it's back right on Rocky Top.
It felt like it's just simply on track. Mm-hmm. Like everything that we brag about UT, University of Tennessee, is like we saw it now. Where in years past, it was like, man, that's cool. That's all right. Like the amount of just guys conversating with one another from different eras. Like me seeing Al Hoods. You know what I'm saying? Like Haynesworth is over there on one side. And I'm seeing you guys from another era. My entire class of 2004 was back. Like that hasn't happened. Like we had a guy that's for a while that was, he was very anti-Tennessee. Arian Foster.
And it was first time back.
You see what I'm saying? That doesn't happen, man. And so he did a podcast the night we all had dinner, like late at night, and he spoke about it. And I was like, okay, you didn't have to do that. And then he was at the game, and here I am on the field talking to Danny White, introducing Arian to Danny White. And not just that, I'm like, man, yeah, Arian came back for the first time. We're all here from 2004, the recruiting class. He was like, I want to meet him. I'm taking off to go get Arian. He's walking behind me to go meet him himself, like being that selfless to connect with guys that's kind of laid down pillars at that university. And not just him, it was other guys. Rob Ayers was there, just other guys that were walk-ons that was there and showed that same love and gratitude. Like that's what that weekend was. And we showed up to gate 21 to get in the stadium.
Man. I felt bad for Altizer. He like, for those of you who don't know, Scott Altizer, he helps the VFLs when you come back to games.
Yeah,
by getting you wristbands for pregame. And when I tell you, I feel like that man ran out of wristbands so fast.
Well, why though? Because it was so many VFLs: football, basketball, baseball, but a lot of football guys, man, that was in town and didn't get turned away. You know what I'm saying? What was so cool? I don't know if you realized it, but at the end of the game, we beat Florida. One of the fans didn't storm the field. But there were former players were on the field taking selfies, celebrating, conversating with one another. Gerald Riggs is out there vlogging. I'm like, wait a minute. When were we ever allowed to do stuff like this? We weren't. And we never had anything to celebrate like that either. That Florida week was crazy.
Man, it was so much fun. Just like exactly like the atmosphere in the stadium, but just seeing everyone. And that, I think as you know, like we poured a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into your experience at college, especially onto that field and for the program. And so to be able to come back and feel right back at home, it just felt great to experience it with all the brothers that you went through that journey with.
It was, man. But guys that were it was a lot. Like even Ole Miss last year, I went to that game too. I think the Florida game environment was even better than that.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I heard a lot of good things about that Ole Miss game at night with the lights going and everything.
Oh my gosh, it was good, but the Florida one was even better because let's be real too. The post game aspect of it was better. We won,
of course, right? Everything's sweeter when you win.
Yes, it is, man.
No doubt. Well, as you know, we come off the big win in Florida, right? We got Alabama coming to town this weekend. I know a little history lesson for our Vol fans. You know when the last time we beat Alabama was, Ramon?
Yes, it's been that long, 2006, Brody. It's been that
crazy.
Long. Yeah,
I was pulling up the notes for the show today, and I was 11 years old when that happened.
You were 11.
11 years old.
Wow.
11.
Way to make me feel old.
That wasn't my goal. That wasn't my goal. But I think it was like crazy. Like, yeah, you on the team, Jason Swain. Yeah. Remember that team, Arian Foster?
Yeah, Arian.
What do you remember about that game?
How big it was. We beat them in 2004. And this is the thing, too, about beating them in 2004. I didn't know what I didn't know about that game. Like, I was a young freshman. I was redshirting. I may have dressed because Foreman made sure that everybody understood, like, what this game was. So just be in it and be ready. That was his thing. Yeah. Like, be in it and be ready because this game is important. We won in 2004, and here I was, quick shower because I didn't play. I'm redshirting, right? But here I see these cigars. I'm like, wait a minute. What is this all about? Like now the exposure of it, because the connectivity of social media, everybody knows it's a cigar game, right?
Right.
But then it wasn't a lot of that. And then you had to hide it too as far as compliance goes.
That's true. It's a little different back then.
Yeah. So it was one of those things. They broke out the cigars. I remember having one in the locker room, and then I took one to my dorm, old Gibbs now, and just sat it there. And I didn't know how important it was. Of course, at that era, we were just winning, right? Mm-hmm. And it was just a situation in which, all right, this is cool. I'll keep it because we beat Alabama, and I knew that was a big-time game. 2006 rolls around, man, and it was just they beat us in 2005, and 6 comes around. It was just one of those situations. I wasn't playing a lot, but you're still in tune to what is actually going on. Very low-scoring game. Arian gets to the point to where he's starting to actually become a guy, too. Like this is the beginning of what the growth of the season or what 2007 was, which was probably my best year or our team's best year at the University of Tennessee for a while. It was Cutcliffe's first year. He's uber passionate about beating Alabama because he's a Tennessee guy too, man. And just to grind out a dub against them, lo and behold, never really understanding or knowing no Dobbs, that will be the last time possibly until now, you know, and this is one thing that I'll always say about this game of Alabama, you know, when both teams are good, is it's always tight. It's always a respect factor. It's always a grind. You know, everybody was saying like the over and under on this game is like 60-some points. I'm like, if I was a betting guy, I'm taking that one down. If it's high scoring, I think the Vols win. You know what I'm saying? But this is
one of those games. These games always go either way. Like no matter how good the other team's offense or defense is, right? Could come out be a high scoring game, or it could come out and even with two explosive offenses, could be like a 20-17 game.
Exactly.
You just never know.
And just that game in general, man. I know we were the better team. To win that one 16-13 says a whole lot about where we were starting to go. We were changing our offense over a little bit. Cutcliffe was very straight and narrow when it came down to operating of the team, man. And he really got us into a really good spot. And of course, in 2007, we ended up playing in the SEC championship because of those things, man. Mm-hmm. We didn't beat Bama in 2007, but it was still a journey for us to just like, we're a good team. And as you said, from 2007, the way it went from your year to after that to 2008, going 5-6 for me, 5-7. That was a crazy turnover.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think we have to do on I guess more on defense going into this game this weekend?
If Bryce is playing, rattle him. I don't think he's the runner as the other kid is. I just can't see that being the case. If it's him back there, Dobbs, you got to get him off his spot. Jalen Milroe, to me, and that's the downside of him. If he's a guy that's back there, he wants to tuck it and run. That plays to our advantage. The thing about Bryce being back there is the idea that you just get him off of his spot, like move his receivers around. I think the most dynamic thing about this matchup is this year, and I'm going to knock on wood as I say this, Bama has yet to reveal that guy at wide receiver. You know, as of late, there's
players, but no one that's like, you know,
separated.
When Devontae Smith was there, right?
Yeah, Waddle. You know, like none of those dudes have emerged, and that's where, to me, as far as like getting Bryce Young to be rattled a little bit, him picking who he's going to that day. The one guy in particular that I do side eye and say he's got to be contained, Jahmyr Gibbs, the Georgia Tech transfer, the running back. Listen to me, watching him on tape, he gets the ball in his hand, he goes. Being on top of him, like really smothering him has to be the winning factor for this week. I won't say I'm not worried about what Bryce Young can do. What I'm telling you is this is the way our guys played against LSU and moving them around in the games that they ran, and hearing Coach Rodney Garner really just lay into the D-line this week and say, hey, you want to be a big guy, play like a big guy. If you don't want a big guy, be a small guy and play like a big guy. Then like you hear the passion of the coaches this week. You hear a bunch of that says or lends itself to believe they understand. We've heard a zero peep out of this group, man, as far as bulletin board material. And that's something I don't think we've necessarily had in the past, where it's that quiet confidence. So defensively, boxing in, if we have to, Jahmyr Gibbs at running back, and if it's Jalen Milroe at quarterback, making him tuck it and run. If it's Bryce, and I know there's a bunch of ifs in this because Saban's not going to say who's the quarterback, and I don't blame him. And truth be told, I would not be eating the rat poison that he lays out about who's going to do what. But if it's Bryce Young, man, you got to rattle him. Everybody I know that's been around him personally, like he's a smaller dude. Yeah. I think he's like 5'10". Some say he's probably like 180. If you get after him and hit him and throw him on the ground, I think that can change the game for us. Yeah,
I totally agree. It's gonna be exciting. You're going to the game this weekend?
You know it. This is part of retirement that you can't have right now.
I know, man. I'm jealous. I'm gonna be watching that TV from my couch, just wishing I could be there.
So answer me this, man. I don't think a lot of people get this. I'm not sure if you talked about it either, but pride of college game day Saturday. Like in the locker room in the NFL, like in the NFL locker room or plane whenever you land. How important is it for your team to be good, Dobbs?
Oh my God. It's like a prerequisite.
It is.
It feels like. It's like if your team, especially like a big school like Tennessee, right? If you're not rolling, man, you will never hear the end of it. Everyone's a hater. Everyone's a hater. And then, as you know, like when you play in the SEC, like most of the guys on the team have also played in the SEC.
Or have played you too.
Exactly. It's competitive, as you know, but I can't wait this year, obviously, expecting a win to get some guys in some Tennessee gear. I already got it laid out.
I know it.
Ronnie Harrison, I already have the sweatshirt for him already laid out.
I love it, man. But that's exactly what it is. Like, I get why people love college football more than they do NFL sometimes because of that, because there's a bigger fan base and reach that goes out to it, man. I'm pretty sure I thanked you for what you did at Tennessee when you showed up in the locker room because you beat some of those teams. I was like, thank you, Dobbs. But again, this team feels different. I'm taking the fam up, man. We're doing a show there this weekend also, man, with the Alumni Association. It should be awesome. A good time. Yeah. And it's been a bunch of olive branches, man, that's kind of been laid out for a bunch of people. Just recently, man, I'm not sure if you saw it too, but I've been telling people like at the radio station, like I know we cover the Titans and that's awesome. I said, but when the Vols are good, everything is good. And we've kind of seen that as of late, like it's been a big shift in this state, this fan base. Danny White said today somebody anonymously donated $2 million.
I saw that today.
Just anonymous. I'm like, this is what happens, though. You know,
that's the power of the T.
It is.
That is the power of the T.
It is, man. And to be a part of that, and this is the other part, to actually go through what we've all gone through as fans, as watchers of the Vols, and to be at this point to where you can at least be in a real conversation and say, this may be the year we beat Alabama. Mm-hmm. That's what fandom is about, dog.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. All right, my man, I want to transition a little bit. I want to talk about your time in Pittsburgh. You spent 11 years up in the Burgh. Talk about that time, man, and how it was playing for, obviously I was there for a little bit, playing for such a storied franchise and also playing with Big Ben.
Man, first and foremost, going to like Pittsburgh, I didn't know what I didn't know. You know, like I've always just been a guy that enjoyed playing the game. Not really a historian like most people. I'm sure you can probably reel off certain things like, man, I remember this. Like, that wasn't me. I just played the game. Like, I lived in the moments all the time. When I went to Pittsburgh, I knew they had won the Super Bowl because of the challenge. Like, okay, I'm an undrafted free agent choosing to go there. And I was just like, well, it didn't really hit me while I was training that Pittsburgh had won the Super Bowl until it was time for me to go to Pittsburgh. But my time there, though, Josh, was stable. I had a lot of people tell me, like, man, Mon, you got to play for one organization. Like, a lot of people don't get an opportunity to do that. You know how special it is? I was just like, man, this is business as usual for me. Like, what are you talking about? It's like, dude, you're contending every year. You are part of a winning organization. I'm like, well, I'm just playing ball. That's the way I always looked at it. But from ownership to the players, to the DNA of the players, man, was by far some of the best times I've had in my adult life, man. Just simply because to do what we do as far as playing in the NFL is hard. You don't want to do that job and be losing. You want to do that job and receive that check and feel like, man, it's okay, but I'd rather be winning. Like, Pittsburgh created that culture to where winning was automatic. If you lost 1-2 games in a row, it was like, well, we'll get it back. It spoiled me. I'll be completely honest with you. Going there with a guy that Ben, he was my only quarterback. You know, he was there when I got there, and I'll be dogged if he wasn't. He was there when I left. But the power of that, though, or the importance of having that guy that's stable like that, you saw, man. Like, when you're around a dude like him, I like to just call him what it was. He was a winner type. He won. I don't care if it was betting on cards. We were playing basketball in the trash can in the locker room, shuffleboard, pool, whatever it was, baseball. Heck, I'm like, how do you do all of these things? But he was just a winner type. And we walk in the stadiums, man. It wasn't if we were going to win. It was, we're going to win. That does a lot for you. I think a lot of people and just judge their seasons off of going against us in those situations too because of that. Like, there wasn't a cockiness to it. There was just a confidence, and we're one of the best teams year in and year out, even in our down years. And Ben was a big part of that. And his toughness was a big part of that. His resilience to actually push through stuff was a part of that too. Kind of some of the stuff that we see at Hendon Hooker a little bit is speaking on like Vol stuff, the importance of making plays. But blocking for him was one of the craziest things ever. Because my first start was in Baltimore, and I had an older guy tell me, it's like, hey, young fella, you get in this game, block, protect him because he holds the ball. He's like, and when you think you've blocked enough, block some more. Keep blocking. Then when you think you're done, keep blocking some more because the play is never dead. And that stuck with me. And that's one of the main things I told every young guy that came underneath me. Chris Scott, one of our VFLs. That was one of the things I told him, like, here, you better grind it out. You got to grind it out, man, because you're never dead in the water when it comes to competing. Coach Tomlin is by far one of the best coaches I've ever been around. I would put him and Coach Fulmer up there. I've had 3 really good coaches in my life. Coach Fulmer, Coach Tomlin, and my high school coach, Coach Johnny McAdams. Every single one of those guys, very stable guys in the way they operated. And that's the way we operated at Tennessee, Pittsburgh, and my high school at Ripley, Tennessee.
What would you say? So you had obviously a long career at the O-line position. What would you say for someone else coming out who's might not be drafted to give them advice on how you kind of attacked each day and were the true professional?
That's a great question. Work hard every day. Fight yourself. I think a lot of the time, and you saw this too, I'm sure you saw it this year in camp. A lot of time dudes will fire themselves.
Yeah.
They'll quit on themselves. We used to have it in camp. I'm pretty sure I probably pulled you to the side of somebody in your class. It's like, hey, look at him. Dead man walking. He's already done. He's waiting to get cut. I had a survival type of mindset, though. My situation was probably a little bit different. I had just had a kid that year before I went undrafted. I had the responsibility of taking care of my girlfriend, who's now my wife now, and my family. I was like, well, this is on me. My approach to it was, look, I'm here to survive. Whatever that means, I got to survive. And I think that's where a lot of the separation come from the guys that do and the guys that don't.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I was in situations where I was like, if I don't make a play, if I don't go hard, if I don't put my foot on somebody's neck, I'm probably going to be gone. Like, I'm in a situation where I look out for whoever. I like to have a good time. I'm going to laugh. But if I've always, one of my mottos, and I teach it to my boys, if it's a game between me and you, I'm going to step on your neck to get what I want. After that, oh, we're cool. We're good.
We'll be friends, right?
But the job of surviving in the NFL is what I would tell you. Work on your craft. Like the way I trained in the summertime, it wasn't you see me going to the footwork guru doing crazy stuff. No, I worked on things that was, that correlates to my position. I worked on my strength. I worked on my deficiencies too. I tried so hard to minimize my weaknesses that I think that's what drove me over the top. And the other part of it is too, those people who compete well, you're a competitor. And I'm sure when I mention this, you might smile, but you have that little voice in the back of your head that tells you what you shouldn't or can't be doing. And because of that, you push. That was me. I found little tidbits here and there. Oh, they brought this guy in. Let me go take him out. You know what I'm saying? Like that was my mindset. Oh, coach is talking real highly of this D tackle. Well, let me show you what I can do against him. Like it was one of those poke the bear type of things when it came down to me and my job of playing in the offensive line for that long in Pittsburgh was I'm going to walk out on my own accord. You're not going to push me out because you outwork me. You outdo what I should be doing. That's not how I would have operated. So I would tell anybody, grind. Whatever you think is good enough, go a little bit further. If you got 4 sets, get in 2 more reps after that once you recover. And mental toughness take you further than any other talent you can possibly have. I knew there were years that they drafted guys to take my job. This is probably 2011. I'm sure 2013. They even brought in a VFL, Chris Scott. I told you to compete with. Yeah. And in each of those moments, man, whether it was other free agent guys, whether it was other drafted guys, I said, okay, screw it. Let's go. And I'll be honest with you, a part of me kept them close. I teach them. I let them know, hey, I'm not running from this. What you need? I got you. Oh, you need to know what to do on this play. This is what you should do. You should have did this. Because if I knew what their deficiencies were, then I knew what I needed to work on too. Why did they draft you? It was one of those things. Like, why did they draft you? How? Why? Am I not killing it enough? So, okay, let me show you how to do this. You go in and play, dude goes right past him. Me, all right, that's not going to happen to me. Let me show you why I've been in this league for so long and you won't. And that was, it sounds grimy, but it is a business.
It is. And that's what the cool part about the league is, but also the part that you have to quickly learn is the ultimate competitor's game.
It is.
From every aspect, right? Like you show up and every single rep, literally from you lifting to getting tape to how you approach the meeting room to ultimately then how you play, everything is being watched and critiqued. And whoever does it the best are the ones that will be around and will help the team and ultimately win in the end.
And see, that was the thing too, was a lot of those dudes came in very like high strong and just thinking, oh, I'm athletic and I can do this and I can supplement that. I beat them in film. I beat them with wisdom. I beat them with everything other than actually playing the game, because a lot of those dudes didn't know what they didn't know, right? And when you get to that point of finding that groove of saying, man, I'm willing to do whatever to win this, I had got to that point year in and year out. It wasn't only years I ever felt safe. And like I said, I always had that little voice in the back of my head that I'm running from, right? And most competitors do. That little voice in your head is like, dude, keep going, you know? And I never felt safe other than the years I got new contracts. Yeah. So if I got 2013, I got my first deals, like multi-year deal. That year right there, I felt good. Oh, I'm making the squad no matter what. The next year, though, I got to keep going. And then the year after that one, well, I got to get another contract. So I forever chase. So like I said, a lot of my time that I spent playing was, how do we survive next? And I was good. And what's crazy, the one guy in particular, and you played with him, that I thought was my biggest challenge, wasn't. But in the back of my mind, he was about to take my job. So I ended up retiring. That guy still didn't start the next year, and then ended up going to another place, getting traded to Cincinnati, and then ended up back in Pittsburgh. And I was like, what the hell was I even stressing about?
Yeah, I had a couple more years in me.
But that voice in my head was like, don't let them get close.
Yeah. How do you, I think another question to that is, obviously you hear that voice and you're constantly trying to improve, but also how do you stop and enjoy the moment and also say, I'm in year 6 in the NFL. I'm living my dream. Let me also enjoy this moment that I have.
About 2 weeks in the off season. That's about it. And I ain't lying. I'm not lying. About 2 weeks in the offseason. I say the first 2 weeks, if we didn't make the Super Bowl, all right, cool. I got from middle of January to beginning of February, right? And then we go right back into training. And then when we get done with OTAs and minicamp, I got about a week of family vacation, and then I'm back. Like, that was the thing about it, Dobbs. Like, you could never be off. And if you listen to the greats like Kobe, Jordan, or LeBron, or just those guys that are in it to win it, Patrick Mahomes, you kind of look at them and you're like, why are you like this? That's because the job is that. Like, I probably wish I had enjoyed it more, because I'd have probably appreciated going to the Super Bowl in year 2. And I was just so zoned in on like, all right, we'll be back, and not really embracing those moments like that,
Yeah. So how has that same mentality, now that been out of the league a couple of years, obviously still extremely successful, how have you transitioned that same mentality that you had in the league as undrafted free agent Ramon into now retired NFL vet, legend, Super Bowl champ Ramon off the field?
Didn't get the Super Bowl. Let me go ahead. I was that close. Friggin' Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers got
what a guy. He got in the way. But I transitioned into it. Man, I got to thank my wife for this. I'm getting into radio. Like, it keeps me around the sport. It keeps me engaged. It lends me to the University of Tennessee. I'm covering the Titans too. But that competitive edge and that never satisfied attitude is kind of transitioned into us having a really good morning show. You've been on it a few times yourself, man, and it's lighter because it's not me hitting people as far as bodies and stuff, but it's also that conversation that we have of discussing sports. We're gonna have a good time. It's an open conversation. I'll let anybody know, like if I'm wrong, say I'm wrong. Like, if your point is better than mine, I'm okay with that, because that's how you get better. That's how I've approached that side of it, man. To actually. Right now, we recently got our ratings for the first time since I even been at the show. For the first time ever since I've been there. My morning show is the #1 rated for males 25 to 54. And that was a phenomenal feat, man. And not just that, the time they spend like listening to us is longer than anybody's. And I'm like, So we're doing something right. And that's that competitive edge. That's that, all right, I appreciate this, but immediately I told my co-hosts, I was like, we got to do it again then.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Always next year, right?
Always next year or the next month or the next just rung on the ladder when it comes down to it. I'm around my boys more. I told them when I was done, I'm lending myself to them. Like, that's where I'm at. My wife, us figuring out who we are as a couple, those type of situations. Like a lot of guys got a league and I looked forward to this. A lot of guys don't. And I'm like, this is a great challenge. I embrace this. I love this because I was always a realist that the league was going to end. Mm-hmm. So I had plans to either get into media. I was this close to taking up a sales job. My wife was like, Moan, you had your show in Pittsburgh for so long. Why would you go sell when you could go do what you've really been doing all these years? But I wanted this sales job because it was like on the sports gaming side of sales. And I was just like, I want the challenge. And this, her steering me this way as far as radio goes was definitely the best decision I've had because it is competitive too. It is one of those where if you're wrong, the crowd gonna let you know. And I'm a big fan of always self-correcting stuff, you know?
I love seeing you going back and forth with fans on Twitter, man. That makes my day. Like if I'm having I'm usually a happy guy. If I'm having a slightly down day, I'll just go on your Twitter and just look at your replies. Hilarious.
See, this is the thing I tell people all the time, and I'm sure you're like this too, Dobbs, is this. Look, this smile, you like to have this all the time. I like to have a good time because the guy on the other side of this smile, he's not a guy you really gonna like. So keep me here. So when somebody try to do something to trigger, I'm like, let's go. I got you. I got time because my work hours from 6 to 10 a.m. Okay.
Yeah, I got nothing but time, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, well, I've appreciated talking to you. As you know, I have a lot of respect for you, how you carry yourself, the player that you were, the mentor that you have been, and now obviously the VFL that you are, both on the radio, in the community, and in social media. So I appreciate you coming on the Players Lounge, hanging out with me for a little bit with the Smoky Mountain Club. Before you go, though, you got a score prediction for this weekend?
Oh, all right. Yes,
no
I
pressure.
do. I know, Dobbs. Like, goodness. Our special teams are good. Our kickers are pretty good. I say all these things, but I'm knocking on wood in case y'all are superstitious. I'm a little stitious, okay? Our special teams are good. I feel like our kickers are better than theirs as far as getting points. If there's a defensive hole, I got this game 27-24 Vols.
Game-winning field goal or defensive stop?
Defensive stop.
Defensive stop.
I think the crowd will have an effect.
Oh, without a doubt.
27-24 Vols.
And the aftermath in Knoxville will be immaculate.
I think Danny White's already prepared to buy goalposts and pay
I saw
fine.
That. I saw that. Yeah. I saw that. Hey, well, while you're in Knoxville, enjoy it for me.
No
Please
doubt.
Send me a video or two. Yes. Or the entire game, whatever you have phone capacity for.
No doubt, man. And by the way, you play for that other team in the North, and I'll just root for you.
Hey, at least it's in the orange color scheme.
It is. Ain't this a VFL too? So that's all good.
Exactly. Well, I appreciate it, my man.
No doubt.
We'll get together this offseason, but thanks for stopping in the Smoky Mountain Club.
Anytime.
Go Vols, always.
Go
Thank
Vols.
y'all for tuning in.